This program may contain material that is not suitable for all audiences. Parental discretion is advised.
Welcome to Straight Talk with DC Hannah, coming to you live from the heart of the Ronapocalypse. Still the Ronapocalypse, my friends. Businesses are still closed. Now, some states and some localities are slowly opening, and people are coming out of their burrows like groundhogs into the fresh snow of early February. Yeah, groundhogs like Groundhog Day. Well, here in Johnson County, Kansas, it's still lockdown until May 11th. Just across the border in Missouri, businesses are starting to open. Other parts of Kansas are seeing slow opening. What we're not seeing, though, is a big return. People are opening a little bit at a time. So most people are still staying in their homes. A lot of people don't have jobs to come back to. Well, if you're staying in your home, you've found ways to pass the time. Some are healthy, some are unhealthy. But one thing that almost everybody is doing is looking around the house and finding projects, things to get done. Well, here at Stately Hannah Manor, one of the things that we did was we started going through boxes. When the lovely Mrs. Hannah and I got married, we each had our house full of stuff. We brought them together. There's a great deal of redundancy. And, as a single guy, I had a lot of single guy stuff. Well, my single guy stuff went into a box. And, well, to be honest, it went into several boxes. And the boxes got put away, sometimes to be brought out when they were needed or when I thought I had something that we could use or could need instead of going out to buy it. So a new pot, a cast iron skillet, an iron, piece of computer equipment. Hey, I think I have that in a box somewhere. We go down there. Well, I still have several boxes of things, including a rather amazing DVD collection of bad old sci-fi movies, one of my passions. But going through the boxes, I found something really cool. It is a tennis racket? Not exactly. It is an electronic tennis racket from Harbor Freight. Now, you don't need electronics to play tennis, do you? So you know what this really is? It's really a fly swatter. It's an electric fly swatter. Electronic, it has one button. You may hear a zap. I can't hear anymore. I don't think so. But the electronic fly swatter. Now, I'm not sure if this is mine or if this belonged to the lovely Mrs. Hannah. But you know what? Doesn't matter because it's mine now, baby. It's mine now. So we pulled it out the other day and happy to find out it still had batteries in it. Well, I really expected this to be like the instant death phaser touch for bugs. And so, I tested out. And like I said, I can't hear. Some of you know that about me. So I can't tell if it's buzzing or not. Maybe it is. But I expected it to work. So I waited. I waited for a fly to show up in the house. And to my great pleasure, it did. Now, that may sound cruel, but I just wanted to make sure this thing worked. And the fly was in the house anyway. It's not like I invited him in, enticed him in. I just waited for him, like any good hunter. So I saw the fly. The fly was on the window glass. I got my electronic fly swatter. And I slowly approached, step by step. Got right up close to him, and the fly saw me, and he leaped. And he leaped right toward the electric fly swatter. So I pushed the button. And when I pushed the button, the fly flew right into him. flew right into my electric fly swatter. And then do you know what happened? Now, you might expect that the fly would then like and die, like you just had, the electric chair. No. What happened was the fly stiffened up. And then when I released the trigger, he relaxed. And then he glared at me with his little tiny fly eyes. He glared at me. Well, I now realize that one of two things are going on. One, the batteries are low. Or two, I in fact do not have the electric fly swatter. I have myself a fly taser. A fly taser. Now, those of you who've been around law enforcement, those of you who know what a taser is, of course, that's an electric device that shoots darts or there are contact leads, and they cause muscle contraction and compliance. You will comply. You will comply. Stop resisting. Well, old habits kicked in. And so once I realized that what I have here is a fly taser, I tased the crap out of that fly. He's on there. He can't get off because he's still a little stunned. So it's like, push the button again. Stop resisting! Stop resisting! Put your little fly hands behind your back. All four of them. And the fly didn't comply. So what I did was, instead of killing him, because I'd already stunned him pretty well, I went outside and flipped the old fly swatter away from me. And the fly staggered off, probably to tell all of his fly friends about the horrible, terrible thing that happened to him at the hands of the big, scary human. Well, I own that one. It was kind of fun. God, the things we do for entertainment, right? Now, some of you are now going, well, that's kind of cruel. Yeah, it's kind of cruel. I'm going to hell for it. Or in my next life, I'll come back as a fly. It all depends on your belief system. And my belief system doesn't account for either of those things, so I feel okay that I zapped a fly, but then released him back into the wild. In a way, it's kind of like Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. Now, am I Marlin or am I Jim? I think in this case, because I was handling the fly swatter, I was Jim. But since I'm telling you about it, I'm Marlin. Now, for those of you who need to catch up, Wild Kingdom was a TV show that was on for many, many years when old people like me were young people. Maybe before your time. Marlin Perkins was some kind of zoo dude. I'm never really sure what, but he sat in a very nice kind of a den, much like this one, except it had big animals on the wall, animals that somebody had at some point killed, skinned, and mounted. Then there'd be a map, and the map would be someplace like Botswana, the outback of Australia, or Detroit. And his assistant, Jim Fowler, who was some kind of outdoorsman too. What they really did, aside from being TV guys, is kind of a mystery. But since we grew up with it, Marlin Perkins was the voice of the outdoors, and Jim was the guy who wrestled the alligators. And Marlin Perkins then would take whatever was happening and then turn it into an insurance commercial for Mutual of Omaha. That's right, Mutual of Omaha Insurance. I see Jim's wrestling that alligator. Oh, the alligator's got his leg. Jim's going to need health insurance. Unfortunately, Mutual of Omaha is there. And they would cut into a commercial for Mutual of Omaha Insurance. It was an incredibly subtle and smooth way to get people to buy insurance. Now, they didn't go so far as to say, well, if you don't buy Mutual of Omaha, we're going to let Jim go back and wrestle some more alligators. But they could have, but they didn't. This is your Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, and that is the guy in the hat tasing a wild fly in its environment and then releasing it back into the open air. I'm sorry, that's the best we got. Well, tell you what, let's switch gears here and have ourselves a cigar. Today's cigar is from Camacho, and this has been in my humidor for about 6 months now, which isn't a coincidence because it is the Ecuador Distillery Edition Toro, and right here on the band it says aged in barrels 6 months. Barrel aged 6 months, in some kind of whiskey barrel. Now, this is, from all indications, a full-bodied cigar. I did read the reviews before I started, just because I was deciding if I wanted to smoke this in front of people. You know, there are cigars like that. There are good cigars and there are bad cigars. And if you're going to watch me smoke a cigar, I'm really not sure I want it to be the experience of, oh my God, I can't stand this thing, unless we do it for comic effect. So without further ado, let's take this outside. Well, here we are in the great outdoors. We're at the backside of stately Hannah Manor, the small arms range where young Miss Jane practices her BB gun skills, and I enjoy a fine cigar for both of our benefit. Is this a fine cigar? Well, let's find out. As I mentioned before, this is the Camacho Distillery Edition Ecuador. The wrapper on this is an Ecuadorian Habano. The binder is Brazilian Mata Fina, and the filler is a combination of Dominican and Honduran tobaccos. Now, Camacho is owned by the concern that also owns Davidoff. Camacho is kind of their down market line, not as down market as Baccarat, you know, the sweet $2 cigars, but down market for Davidoff. I fired this bad boy up, and with a combination of a Habano wrapper, Mata Fina binder, and unidentified Dominican and Honduran filler tobaccos, it's hard for me to really get an impression up front, basically what to expect. Sorry about that, it's a little tough to light. 3 attempts at the light and it's not quite catching on. Now, they have been stored. These cigars have been stored in my aging humidor, been there for months and months, perhaps as long as 5 months, since the Nebraska Cigar Festival. There we go, now it's catching. You just need a little encouragement. So what do we have here? Let me relax. There we go. Ooh, pepper on the nose. You know I don't have the Rona because I'm getting that pepper retrohale. Now that it's catching and generating a good head of steam, I'm picking up a couple of notes. My first one is, oh, okay. A little bit of vanilla. Since it's barrel aged, bourbon vanilla, that's probably where I'm picking that up, is that little residue of the whiskey barrel in the, on the tobacco still. Show you that for a second. Little sweet, some sweet earth there. Yeah, I think we'll call it that. I'm going to say this is notes of vanilla and sweet earth with a little pepper on the retrohale. Now, where those flavors come from are from complex chemicals in the tobacco that on combustion fool our brain into thinking there's something else. With the exception of that bourbon barrel note where we've picked up chemicals that have come into the tobacco, their binder leaf rather, during the process of aging in the barrels, it's actually picked up some of that bourbon and oak sweetness. And bourbon and vanilla are very closely related. The other flavor notes that we get are from complex chemicals. They fool our taste buds and the olfactory bulbs in the back of our nose into thinking that they are earth, that they're bread, that they're wood, that they're leather, or that they're pepper. There's not actually any pepper in the soil where these tobacco leaves are grown, but a chemical that's released convinces our brain that it is. Not a bad smoke, not bad. And for a sub $10 cigar, it's all right. Now let's see. As he clatters and clangs. Having some coffee this morning. This is smooth breakfast blend coffee. The beans come from the Cameron Coffee Company. This is fancier than it sounds. I buy it at the grocery store. And it's Cameron breakfast blend coffee beans. Taste of coffee. Taste of cigar. And this is what we call pairing. Yes, sounds fancy, doesn't it? It means just having a drink with your cigar and finding a combination that you enjoy. Well, this is an enjoyable morning combination. The cigar is not overpowering. Some Camacho cigars, they really go for the strength, like the Triple Maduro, the throwback, the sidekick. I mean, and the name should tell you, right? This is a little bit smoother smoking experience. It's not overpowering. It's good. And for the price, it's definitely something to consider. And I say for the price, because in these uncertain times, price is a factor. Let me ask you something there, friends. How many times in the last 2 months have you heard a commercial, seen an ad, or read something online with the words, "in these uncertain times"? What impression does that create in your brain? Is it that there's a virus all around us, an invisible enemy which we must hunker down to fight? Well, if that's what you think, then you're being fooled. You're being fooled by advertisers. You're being fooled by government. You're being fooled by the media. Because the uncertain times are not caused by the virus. The uncertain times were caused by the government. Let's do a little history lesson here. In 1917, there was an epidemic, the Spanish flu epidemic. You know, it killed 50 million people worldwide over a 4-year period. It was the major factor in the end of the First World War. That troop levels were decimated. And governments finally had to find an alternative to dying in the trenches of smallpox or of Spanish flu or of whatever other nasty diseases they got from being up to their ankles in their own filth, eating dead rats. Yes, that was the First World War. And so they figured out they needed to do something about it. And so along came the armistice. A little farther back, there's a huge smallpox epidemic during the American Revolution. There was a polio epidemic that went on for decades. Measles outbreaks. Not 11 years ago, the H1N1 flu. It killed many more people than the COVID. And you know what never happened at any point in time? They never shut down an entire economy. Governors never ordered everyone in the state to close their damn business unless the government said you're essential. That's what's different this time. That's what's created the uncertain times, is a previously untested social experiment that sacrificed and is sacrificing as we speak the engine that runs everything, and that is commerce. It is business. Now, we've seen, since this all started, the big retailers are unaffected. They continue to have sales, and their sales go up because the small stores have been shut down. The government declared what they did to be non-essential. Non-essential business. If you have one of these non-essential businesses, or if the government said that to your employer that your job is non-essential and therefore you must either stay home or perhaps even been fired, do you feel the word non-essential applies? Isn't making money to feed your family, to keep a roof over your head, to pay for all the things in your life that you need and that you want, isn't that essential? You are being asked to sacrifice everything for a social experiment, and I say a failed social experiment. Massive stay at home for healthy people who otherwise would have zero problems with the Rona. This massive social experiment has failed. We now see every day businesses that belong to our friends, our neighbors, and ourselves going under, being unable to reopen, perhaps trying to reopen in a limited basis. Restaurants not being able to have enough customers flow through in an hour to pay their expenses. Retailers that were deemed non-essential in some places opening back up, but their customer base are still hunkering down in fear or because of mandated government shutdown. And in different places, the government lockdowns have been at different levels, as we know. In some places, people were arrested for leaving their homes, going farther than 200 yards from their front door. In some places, people were fined for taking their children to the park. In other places, businesses attempted to reopen, and immediately the power of the state was brought to bear against them. A hairdresser here in Kansas had the police shut her down immediately when she reopened out of necessity. Now, that's pretty damn essential, isn't it? People are protesting, and they're protesting actively by going to their state houses and in front of their city councils and county commissions, and they're protesting by living their life. I love that. Last Saturday, I engaged in a conscious act of loving protest. I rode to Perry, Kansas with the American Legion Riders and 500 other bikers. And we rode in a parade for a 6-year-old girl who's dying of cancer. Now, people staying at home, they're hiding behind their windows. They're insisting that mass gatherings are inherently dangerous and we're all going to die. And they wag their self-righteous finger at us. 500 good people on motorcycles and hundreds of cars, emergency vehicles. You know what I saw? What I saw are people who naturally, socially, associated with their friends, the people inside their circle, while maintaining a normal social distance from people they didn't know that weren't in their groups. I saw a lot of folks who saw old friends they hadn't seen, who they've been locked down with, and they shared hugs and they shared love. And we all, out in the open air and the sunshine, we did something wonderful for a family who's losing much more than you're losing or I'm losing by this damn shutdown. But yet we engaged in an act of conscious and loving resistance. I want to remind you of the importance of resistance in your life. Robert Heinlein said that he follows rules that he finds easy to follow, and he disregards those that are onerous because he alone is responsible for himself. You alone, my friends, are responsible for you. The people who insist that you shut down your life for some nebulous other, for some nebulous greater good that the government has defined, they are the selfish ones. You're not selfish for wanting to be able to work, to operate your business, to live your life, to visit your children or grandchildren or parents. That's not selfishness. But it is selfish to expect other people to sacrifice all of that because you're afraid. If you are the afraid one and your fear makes you demand that others sacrifice on your behalf, you are the selfish son of a bitch. And like Forrest Gump said, That's all I've got to say about that. I am enjoying this cigar. It's turning into a really good morning smoke. Also picking up a little wood on top of that vanilla. Not surprising, barrel aged. And the retrohale has that barnyard, that hay note, and that little bit of pepper. It's a good combination. Again, if you can find one, I recommend it. Well, you've been listening to Straight Talk with DC Hanna. You've been watching My Ugly Mug. I appreciate it. If this is your first time, welcome. If you've come back, damn, aren't you a glutton for punishment? I'm glad you are. So, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Straight Talk with DC Hanna. Go to Facebook and like Straight Talk with DC Hanna. Join the party. I'll be back next week with more silliness, more cigars, and some serious discussion to help us all get through these uncertain times. To everyone watching, peace out. For my family and my friends, I love you. I'll talk to you again soon.